Hello everybody. I'd like to begin by thanking the organisers for giving me this opportunity to talk about a subject very close to my heart, which is drug repurposing in oncology. Let me begin with some conflicts of interest. I have no financial conflicts of interest. I work for the Anti-Cancer Fund, which is a not-for-profit research foundation based in Brussels. We do not engage in commercial drug development projects. We are not interested in developing intellectual property or commercial access, and our scientific work is open source. We aren't motivated by profit. We want to find new treatment options for cancer patients. To do this, we're interested in those areas of cancer research where there is no commercial interest. So that includes drug repurposing, but also therapy optimization, which seeks to reduce dosing or changing schedules of existing treatments. And we're interested in collaboration and consortium building. So what are some of the issues which are driving drug repurposing? And the first one is financial toxicity. In these charts here, you can see in the blue lines the increase in pricing for new cancer drugs approved by the FDA, and in yellow you can see the ESMO and ASCO clinical benefit scores, and you can see there that what's happening is a trend towards fast increasing prices of new cancer drugs and flatlined or declining benefit. So we're paying more for drugs which are actually delivering less. When we put this into a global context, we can see that the pricing for these new drugs in low and middle income countries is absolutely exorbitant. Factor in also the increase in incidence that we expect in oncology, and we have a situation that is getting worse, not better, over time. And we have a situation now where many drugs are not affordable in low and middle income countries, but many of the new drugs are not affordable even in the high income countries. So health disparities will worsen both intra-country and inter-country. Another issue is that we have neglected malignancies. Although there have been massive improvements in some cancers, in others there has been no change in decades. So we can see overall survival in osteosarcoma has not changed since the 1970s. Similarly, for glioblastoma, hardly any change in overall survival. And this is partly driven by the fact that for rarer cancers, there are no commercial imperatives that are driving development at the same extent as in some of the more common cancers. So despite improvement in some cancers and some incremental change, then we really do need to move forward to improve survival in sarcomas, ovarian, pancreatic cancers, and metastatic disease remains problematic everywhere. So can repurposing make a difference? And for us, let's look at the definition first. We define repurposing as the use of an existing licensed medication for a new medical indication, so for a disease that the drug was not originally developed for. Repurposing is becoming more popular and there are many different definitions, but that's our working definition. The reason for focusing on existing drugs is that we already know a lot about these drugs. We know not just the common side effects, but the rare side effects. We understand PK, PD, dosing, and so on. Many of the drugs are available globally, and often they have low cost. And we have decades of clinical experience on which to draw. This means then, in theory, that drug repurposing speeds up the development cycle. We can skip early phase trials. It could be cheaper and also safer. And so from a patient perspective, often more convenient because these are oral drugs that are easier to take and less dangerous than newly developed molecules. Repurposing exists on a spectrum. It's not an all or nothing. And so it's quite common that we take a cancer drug developed in one disease and apply it to a new disease, but some of these jumps are actually quite difficult. Taking a drug developed for a blood cancer and applying that to a solid tumor is quite a big jump. We call this kind of development soft repurposing. And at the other end of the scale where the anti-cancer fund is focused, we find non-cancer drugs being reused to treat cancer. So the BCG vaccine from tuberculosis to bladder cancer, thalidomide with its horrendous history being reused for multiple myeloma. We call this use of non-cancer drugs for oncology treatment hard repurposing because it's a bigger jump and harder to implement. But given that, we have no lack of candidates. As part of our work with the Repurposing Drugs in Oncology project, we developed a database of non-cancer drugs that showed evidence of efficacy in cancer. And currently we have 371 candidate drugs on that list. We also track the clinical trial activity for these drugs. And so we are looking at active trials, trials which are currently recruiting, and there we find 971 active trials that are planned to include 167,000 patients across 44 countries. So there is quite a lot of activity there, and you can see that the most popular drugs are things like metformin, celecoxib, aspirin, hydroxychloroquine. So lots of positive trial activity there. Let's look at a recent successful example of hard drug repurposing. The FMO, also called eflornithine, is an old drug that was used to treat West African sleeping sickness. Its mechanism of action is the inhibition of ODC in polyamine synthesis, which is a driver of neuroblastoma. There was data from preclinical models and a trial, phase 2 trial, that showed the FMO treatment reduced the risk of relapse by 50%. And relapse is a major cause of death in the high-risk population of children with neuroblastoma. Now, it took a long time, lots of preclinical and clinical work, huge collaborative effort involving parents and families, as well as scientists and doctors, but finally this has led to a drug approval. So this is another rare example of a hard drug repurposing success story. I'll finish with a work in progress. Angiosarcoma is a rare vascular soft tissue sarcoma. With standard treatments are taxanes or anthracyclines, and the response rates are poor and overall survival is under 10 months. So a disease that's urgently in need of new treatments. We reviewed work that showed that the drug propranolol, the original beta blocker, actually has multiple relevant pathways that it affects, and some tremendous preclinical work has been done, and we now have a series of case reports showing that propranolol actually can be effective for some patients with angiosarcoma. A huge set of case reports, including from low and middle income countries, showing that the cases have responded. And of course, what we want now is more prospectively collected data to find the best combination of propranolol and standard treatments that we can to make this another success story. Thank you.